Hey guys, this is Canterbury with Dave, and today you join me for episode 13 of Road to Colonisation, and we start by departing the fueling spacecraft from the Canterbury, because the Canterbury is definitely not full of fuel, and we'll need a bunch more. So we're going to head back to Minmus, fill up the fueling vehicle, and then come back later in the episode, because it is almost time to head back to Duna, yes! After just 13 episodes, well, I guess it'll be 14, which is much better than the rate in Road to Exploration, which was more like 50. Anyway, the burn takes a long time, because as you know, it's quite a heavy vehicle, even when it is void of fuel. So we cut through a bit and see us making our trajectory to Minmus, and then doing a quick plane change. We won't be going there right now, because it takes about a week to get out, and we are running out of time, really, to prepare for going to Duna, so we'll do a launch in between this leaving and getting to Minmus. Anyway, the trajectory is locked in, but now it is time to launch a Pulsar X loaded with some important payloads for the Canterbury. This episode will pretty much entirely be preparing the Canterbury, because it's taking a lot of things to Duna, because this is a pretty industrial mission. It's already got the miner on board, but on board of this vehicle, I believe, is a couple of habitation modules, because the little base down on Duna is fine, but it's just one thing. So I'd like to have some habitation modules, so that we can fit more Kerbals down there. They don't all have to sit in that one little base, you know? So yes, this will launch them into orbit, put them into the cargo bay of the Canterbury, and that'll head off. So yeah, the Pulsar X, of course, the SSTO, which makes it nice and easy to reuse. Because, you know, you can pick the landing site for the whole rocket. Because of two-stage rockets, I don't really have time to do a boost back burn. I mean, I could sort of, but then I'd also have to put a bunch more fuel in it, and I'd have to kind of re-engineer my whole system. We actually almost get hit by some debris there. Well, it misses by quite a way, but some debris was pretty close to our spacecraft. And this episode, I have really noticed the Kessler syndrome. You'll occasionally see when I turn the map on, go onto the map and turn probes on, that Kessler syndrome is getting pretty bad, because I have a gajillion little communication satellites to make it really reliable, which I dropped in Road to Exploration, and there's a lot of debris, because, you know, I drop a lot of stuff in space. Anyway, so we decouple our little habitation module, well, two habitation modules, which have their detachable landing system in there, and a bunch of things for, well, being docked to the Canterbury. We got ourselves our maneuver laid in, and then we maneuver into the Canterbury. You can see it just against the inky blackness of the dark side of the planet. Slightly nicer to look at now that we have ambient light enhancement. Slightly less immersive, of course, but I think the video looks better when you can see things in the dark. Anyway, yes, we did use a little bit of fuel just to slow ourselves down, because it is a pretty heavy payload, actually, and the RCS is not particularly powerful. Anyway, yes, as I said, this will maneuver into the cargo bay, and it will sit there, and then the miner right there down on the right, that'll move to dock onto the back of this, because it can't quite fit in the cargo bay, but it can hang out of the back. So yeah, it's just gonna maneuver in, try and not knock the sides around, and get that docking port on there, and there we go, all docked together, looking rather beautiful. Well, not looking like much, because the cargo bay kind of covers it. So yeah, it's going pretty well. We're going to get rid of this RCS tug, because we don't need it, and move the Canterbury a little bit, so that it's gone, and decouple the nose cone, because I've left that on there for too long. That was just there to make the launch a little more aerodynamic, but you can see now it is just the cupola at the front, giving a nice view for the pilot. But we need to bring this rocket back, because of course the spacecraft runs on money, so we're going to turn off all of these outer engines, because they're not needed, because the rocket is very light now, and it's more efficient just using the Rockamax. So yeah, and then we do our quick deorbit burn, get a nice little trajectory. It's looking kind of fine-ish. We'll probably land behind the KSC, because the periapsis is quite close to the KSC. And then it's just a matter of flying back through the atmosphere, having all of our fins, that's what they are, burn off and explode. That's fine, they're cheap, and then land just behind the continent that houses the KSC, just in the ocean, which is much easier to land with one of these rockets that doesn't have landing legs. So yeah, it touches down quite nicely, and we'll recover that. But back at the Canterbury, we actually did complete a mission to expand the Canterbury a little bit. We get a little bit of money just for putting those things on. And yeah, the Canterbury now has enough space to complete the mission, and we got a little bit of money for it before it's even done anything. And talking of money, we've pretty much completed the tech tree now, so I don't really need science. So for the first time ever, I'm going to set up one of these administration building contracts where when we get science, we actually give away a little bit of that science and get quite a bit of money. Well, a little bit of money, just to make things run a little smoother. So there we go. Anyway, now it's time to head to Minmus, go to the little miner on the surface and, well, start getting some more fuel. However, annoyingly, the trajectory has been killed by floating point. It's now in the wrong position. That happens quite a lot in KSP. Floating point error, because, you know, floating point only has so much precision, because stuff gets cut off when you have a large exponent. Yeah, all that maths that makes games not fun. Anyway, so let's slow ourselves down on the dark side of Minmus. But again, you can see the spacecraft, and you can actually see Minmus. Annoyingly, that doesn't transfer to the map view, which makes things a little annoying, but that's okay. So we'll get ourselves our orbit. We're going to do a quick bit of maneuvering so that we land in the day, but that took a while, so here we are, just moving into land. I'm going to try and land close to the lander on the first try, because usually I kind of do I land close-ish and then maneuver in close enough to connect it with pipes. But this time we're just going to go and try and land very close to the miner, which, yeah, should be fairly easy. I've done this a few times now. I'm used to this vehicle. Kind of know how it flies. Well, I guess it's flying. You don't need air to fly, do you? I think that's probably the definition involves atmosphere. So is it just falling? Yeah, I actually tried to switch vessels briefly, and it said you can't switch vessels when you're about to crash a vessel. And I was like, dude, what are you saying? I can land this. You might see the text come up. It's like, no, man, you can't switch. You're about to crash. I'm like, I'm not. Yeah, see? It's like, fuck you, KSP. What do you think I am? Some kind of greenhorn pilot? Oh, hell no. I'm not going to crash this. I'm going to land it beautifully. But yeah, you can see after quite a bit of kind of tricky maneuvering, trying to get it landed close-ish, we're getting in pretty close. And we're just falling apparently about to crash according to KSP, but I can tell you that we do land fine because Minmus is a very low gravity world, so slowing down is not really a problem, and we're just maneuvering in, twisting ourselves a little, trying to get within 30 meters, because I think that's how, you know, kind of far you can extend those pipes. But then we start getting a little too close. I'm worried I'm going to destroy the solar panels with the engine exhaust, and yeah, but we land pretty nice and close. That's pretty good, and you can actually see that the miner has been heating up a lot. Those radiators have gotten quite red. Yeah, I think that's just kind of it because I've been away from it for a while, but they do start to cool down after a while, after we connect it to the spacecraft. I guess maybe this spacecraft also provides some cooling because it has just a lot of mass. And yeah, it starts to cool down, but that's worrying. It won't be a problem for the Duna spacecraft because Duna does have an atmosphere, even though it is quite thin, so it'll cool more effectively. But yeah, this is something to watch, I guess. Anyway, that'll get all filled with fuel, but once again, we need to send some more things to the Canterbury because, well, we need to have vehicles, because the Canterbury cannot go and land places, although I reckon it could land on Minmus if I really tried. And actually, it has a high thrust mode, so it could probably land anywhere, other than like Tylo and maybe probably not Kerbal. But yeah, I reckon I could land the Canterbury on Duna, but then it would be stuck there. But that would look really cool, like a monument to... maybe that's how I'll end this series. Anyway, but no, this is a little shuttle, a little lander, which can go and land on Duna and Ike. It's different from the other landers that I sent with the Concordia, because, well, it's an upgraded version. It can now carry 7 Kerbals as opposed to 3. And it also has more efficient engines. It has a better RCS system, because if you only have 3 RCS thrusters, it's kind of a little bit screwy. And yeah, it's generally just a better spacecraft. And the fairings kind of buck around a bit. And you can see it now. It's quite nice looking. I quite like how it looks. It's more interesting than just kind of fuel tank engine capsule. It's, you know... and then below it is a little extra life support module for fueling up the Duna resource station, and also just in case we need some more life support, because the crew requirement for this spacecraft is actually going up from 6 to 7, as you'll see why later, because of a tourism mission. But yeah, you'll see that later. Anyway, it does turn out I have been it turns out I've been burning the fuel out of the lander because I'm using docking ports, not decouplers. So we transfer that back. We deploy the antenna because there's no Kerbals in this. It is probe controlled. We decouple the lander, and now we've just got to go back and grab that life support module because, well, we need that life support. And this kind of reminded me of Apollo, where the command module would decouple, turn around, and grab the lander from the rocket, which, yeah, I guess just like Apollo, except totally different. But yeah, anyway, this will be decoupling, getting closer encounter with the Canterbury, because we didn't want to get the rocket going too close, because it's quite big and we don't want it striking the Canterbury. We've already had enough Kessler syndrome problems of seeing things fly quite close to us, and one gets very close in a bit later to the miner. But anyway, after a bunch of maneuvering, which you don't need to see too much of, because we're going to do a lot of that in this episode, because it is, again, just adding modules to the Canterbury. Anyway, this will go on this side of the Canterbury, and the lander will go on the other side, and a few more things will also go on the life support side to balance it out, because we're only taking one lander, because there's also already one lander out at Duna, and also I don't want to be hauling loads of landers, because that kind of reduces the amount of other things I can take. So anyway, after a actually quite nice looking maneuver, we dock that to the Cant, and then we're going to decouple undock the lander and put it on the other side. Hopefully it'll be fairly balanced. I mean, when this is in high thrust mode, it has a gimbaling engines, although the engines are quite close to the spacecraft, those big vectors, so we probably don't want to gimbal them too much or they might destroy the spacecraft. Anyway, the maneuver takes me a while because, I don't know, I just do maneuvers slowly, but we get lined up and ready to dock with the Canterbury. But yeah, I'm hoping this mission goes well, because I haven't really tested this vehicle a lot. I do know that I need to add some Kerbal attachment system struts to those vector engines, because they're going to bend those wings, but we can do that when we bring the crew up. But anyway, we need to move this miner now to the back of the cargo bay, otherwise this will be horribly offset and it'll just flip out when it tries to fire up its engines. Because the mine is quite heavy. Anyway, however, I don't have any monopropellant because I decoupled the RCS tug. So I'm going to have to do this docking entirely with nuclear engines, which, not super fun. Well, no, it is quite fun actually, but it's not super easy. So it will require a little bit of thought and me doing this quite slowly. But yeah, we maneuver to the back, and then we're going to line ourselves up with the cargo bay-ish. And then hopefully maneuvering quite slowly, because if I fire these engines for too long, there won't be time to slow down, and we'll probably destroy a large portion of this mission. And we don't have time to replace it, because the transfer window's coming up in like 50 days! So yeah. Anyway, now we're all lined up, just do a quick burn, get docked onto those big docking ports on the bottom of the landers. Those do decouple actually when they go and land. Not the landers, the habitation modules. But yeah, those big docking ports will decouple away from the bottom of the spacecraft. The habitation modules when they go and land. But anyway, yes, we get our docking rather nicely. You don't really need RCS if it's a fairly simple maneuver. And yeah, anyway, talking of bringing crew up, we need to get some crew ready for this mission, and we don't have a lot of crew on the ground, so we're bringing back the 6 Kerbals who are currently on board Odin Station so that they can head back to Kerbin, and well, then some of them will probably go up to the Canterbury. I have to bring them all back right now because I don't have another spacecraft, and this is their ferry home. This is, of course, an Ares 3, which is roughly based on a Dragon 2, kind of lands propulsively-ish. Big, carries 7 Kerbals, that sort of thing. But yeah, so now we're just going to enter the atmosphere, hopefully not explode, because that'll be not super great. But no, we have brought one of these back before. We know that it is heat-proof, because that fairing's pretty heat-proof, and it does indeed have a heat shield. Just using the engines here to get my trajectory nice and close to the KSC so I can land on land, which is important because it has landing legs and it's easier to land on land. However, on the way down, it starts to tip, apparently between, I think, Mark 4 or 5 and Mark 1. It's not stable going backward. But luckily, as we start to slow down and transition through various aerodynamic profiles, it does regain stability once it's below supersonic speeds. Annoyingly, the landing legs don't deploy, except randomly they do there for some reason. Who knows what KSP is thinking. And I'm going to attempt to land entirely on engines. However, I kind of slightly overestimated how much delta V I have, and you can see I'm slowing down reasonably well and would probably land a little hard, but it would be okay. But then the engine shut off and I slam into the ground and it tips over. Luckily, all of the crew are safe because they were cushioned by the heat shield, the fuel tank, and the engines, and the landing legs. So it landed pretty hard, but it is alive. I like the kind of hole in the bottom of the fairing where the fuel tank and heat shield were. That's pretty cool. Yeah, not the best landing, but the Kerbals did survive. It is a pretty durable spacecraft. And as you can see, yeah, all 6 Kerbals back safely-ish. I mean, they're probably a little rattled, but yeah, that's fine. Anyway, now we're just launching another rocket, a Starlight 1, my only non-heavy lift vehicle. And it's just taking up a couple of modules, or maybe just one module. Yeah, I think it's just the power module, because on Duna, if you remember, we don't have enough power to kind of use all of our equipment. We can't grow food, recycle oxygen, purify water, do science, and everything else. So we're going to send some big solar panels out to kind of try to counter that. So this is going to dock to the side where the life support is on the Canterbury, and it should be pretty good. This is pretty much the last thing we need to bring up, I believe, other than fuel from the Minmus miner, but we're also going to have to send up another fueling spacecraft because it'll be a little bit short on liquid fuel, but that'll just be next episode. And we also obviously need to send up crew and this fuel and crew. So 3 more launches and we'll be going, which will all be in next episode. Well, it won't all be we'll be leaving next episode is what I'm trying to say. Because it's time to go back. The transfer window will only be open for a little while. Anyway, we managed to get on a good trajectory just in time to land the rocket, and you can see we're landing it here, checking the payload constantly to make sure it hasn't gone over Apoapsis, which it does, but it's fine. We just push ourselves into orbit anyway, and everything looks good. Bit of a rush thing when you have to land a 2-stage rocket that's on a weird trajectory. And then we just get our encounter nice and close using the maneuver node to show us future encounters. That looks pretty close and we should be fine. And then, again, we've done a lot of this today, so here we are just docking to the Concordia, just docking to this side. So hopefully this should balance out the lander on the other side, or ish. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfectly balanced. Then we just need to bring some fuel up and some Kerbals, and all should be good. But yes, it is fully laden with a pretty heavy payload, but it should be able to get out to Duna. And here we are just taking on a contract to take a couple of tourists on this mission, so there will be a complement of 7. A scientist, 2 engineers, 2 pilots, and 2 tourists going on this mission. That'll just help fund this whole thing, which is always important, and I've never taken tourists to Duna. Anyway, here we are on Minmus, just taking off with the big-ass fuel shuttle, which does not take off very fast when it is full of liquid fuel and almost full of oxidizer. Not entirely, because it doesn't need a full tank of oxidizer, because the Canterbury is fairly full of oxidizer. Now we just need to get into orbit and then start heading back to fuel up this spacecraft, fuel up the Canterbury, so we can go to Duna and turn Duna into a little bit more of a colony. I won't be taking, as I said, loads of Kerbals at this time to really colonize it. That'll probably be a future mission. But this will be setting the groundwork. Well, not setting the groundwork, but really like laying in the plans and hardware we need to actually do that. Future missions to places like Jewel, where it'll take a little longer, will probably be all done in one mission, because that'll just be maddening if I have to wait years between doing anything. Anyway, so we're just doing our burn to get ourselves down nice and close to the planet so that we can go and encounter the Canterbury and fuel it up, because that's the mission, as I've said multiple times. Anyway, it's looking pretty good. We are a little inclined, but we just do a quick inclination change. Nice, kind of luckily fairly high on our orbit, so it doesn't take up too much fuel. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. Then we just do our deorbit burn as kind of standard sort of thing. Get our encounter nice and close once we're slow enough, and then we'll come around again. You can see just lining things up. This is actually, you can see we didn't actually get it on the 2nd orbit, so we're doing a bit of a tweak so we get it on the 3rd orbit. But we should be encountering fairly slowly, which is always nice when, heading at millions of dollars worth of hardware, billions of dollars worth of hardware. Although obviously not in KSP funds, it's probably like $1 million or something, because the funds only apply to rocketry, so they can be they can be worth quite a lot per each fund. Anyway, so yes, we're going to start refueling that, it'll all be good. But this will be finished in the next episode. We will be totally fueled up from the fuel shuttle. We'll bring up some Kerbals and a little more fuel, and then it will fly. And there'll also be a fuel shuttle that will do the same as this one does, but on Duna that'll be heading out separately, because it'll just be too heavy for the Canterbury to take. Unless I just docked it to the back and used its engines. I don't really want to be pushing on all the stuff in the cargo bay. We'll just send 2 ships. But yes, I'm quite liking how much this is all laden with. It's looking rather industrial now, and I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too, and I hope you'll come back in future episodes to come and see this head to Duna, and the Concordia get back, which will be heading to Eve soon. But anyway, yeah, as I said, that'll be in future episodes. But if you want to go and watch something right now, there is my subscriber designs from Thursday, in which we fly an X-15, which is a rocket plane dropped from a bomber, which is pretty cool. There's also my most recent episode of Prison Architect, in which someone escaped from my Supermax prison. I was very upset, but you can go check that out. There's also links to my Twitter, Twitch, and Patreon in the description if you're interested. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been Casby with Tape. I'll see you next time.